Hi friends, it's tomiciamarie and I teach you why communications is actually key. I use my communications degree to break down pop culture phenomena, dissect common relationship issues, whether platonic or romantic, and give advice on self-development. Today's video is going to be about toxic friendships and why people stay in them when they know that they're toxic. The articles that are grounding today's video are right here as well as listed in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into the videos. Social relationships, it could be any type, but today's video we're going to be talking about friendships specifically, are so important to our life. We thrive off of having a social network and communication with people, but sometimes those social relationships that we're in can have negative effects just as much as they have positive effects in our life. The study that grounds today's video looks at why people maintain ambivalent relationships, or those toxic relationships, which are highly positive and highly negative. So that's what an ambivalent relationship is, and why these friendships can be detrimental. One piece of information that I found out that was just so shocking and blew my mind was that anthropologist Robin Dunbar came up with a sort of ratio of friendships that the average person maintains. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar found that the average person can have 150 casual friends, 50 close friends, 15 friends that are closer than those 50, and then 5 really intimate relationships. Within that group of 5, it could be family members or really close friends that are a part of that main support group. If you try and have more than 5 really close friends, or like more than 15 of those closer friendships, and you increase the quantity of those friendships, the quality tends to go down. So it's interesting to note that because we have this sort of average capacity for friendship, why you would keep someone who's highly negative as much as they're highly positive around in your life, especially if they're one of your close 5. So when it comes to those ambivalent or toxic friendships, the research looked at external factors and internal factors as why people might keep toxic friends around. More specific key studies include looking at intimacy, distancing, feeling obligation to the friendship, or even voluntary contact. Research found that people felt committed to these friendships, not necessarily that they felt obligated to be in them. It's like a slight differential. They more so felt a commitment to try and have this friendship keep working, even though it was pretty ambivalent. And because of that, research shows that people who felt a higher commitment to keeping their ambivalent friendships around were more likely to have distancing strategies in their relationships. So not hanging out with a person as much, not texting them or calling them as much, just because it's too much for them to have intimacy when trying to maintain a relationship that's highly positive and highly negative. Overall, research suggests that having more and better quality relationships is going to have better health effects that are more beneficial to you, rather than having fewer and more negative friendships, which I believe you guys already know, but it's just important to note the research says. When it comes to ambivalent friendships, having more of those in your social network is associated with higher cardiovascular reactivity to stress and higher levels of depression. So if you are watching this video and you feel like you have a toxic friend or a couple toxic friendships, please keep watching, because it's going to be so important for you to hear the facts and then decide after this video if you want to keep those friendships around or if you want to cut them. As well, in a separate study than the one that we're looking at today, research has proven that ambivalent friendships lead to higher blood pressure. So imagine more stress, higher levels of depression, and higher blood pressure. You just don't need that kind of stress in your life. Honestly, you don't need it. So you might be wondering, if toxic friendships are so bad, why do people stay in them? There are 2 main reasons that people stay in toxic friendships. The first is that it's not all bad. So just like Kehlani's album, it was good until it wasn't. The friendships that you're in, although they may be toxic, you have really high highs, even though you also have really low lows, but you have really high highs, and that's why people stay in them. You know, you have great memories with this person, they always make you laugh, or they're always down for an adventure, or you've been friends with this person since you started college, and they've been so instrumental in your life. Those kinds of things are all great positives, and people don't want to let go of the positives in a friendship. They don't want to only look at the negative and then forget the positive. So they try and find a balance between the two, and then they just end up staying. So the second reason is because of the normative ties that people have. So like I kind of mentioned before, you met them in college and they're like one of your really good college friends. They could be a family member and you just can't get rid of them. You can't boot them out of the family. They're in your church or they're in your club. You have associations to these people that make it harder for you to leave the friendship, which is why some people keep toxic friends around. So in addition to people's own personal desire to keep these friendships together because of the positives, people also might not leave because of perceived barriers that they have. And these perceived barriers are more of internal things. So like, you're someone who believes in the power of forgiveness. So you just want to forgive what they did and move on past it because you want to believe in the holistic nature of your friendship. So you want to forgive them, or because you value having many friends, you don't want to like lose someone who's a part of your social network because, in your identity, it's important for you to have many friends. Or you may have a desire to finish what you start. So if you're like, I started this friendship with someone and I'm determined to see it through the end. That's also another motivation for some people to stay in these relationships. They don't want to give up or feel like a quitter or like they lost or something like that. So they really have a desire to like see it through the end, even if it's hard, even if there's many obstacles. And some of these motivations, although we're talking about toxic friendships, also relate to toxic romantic relationships. So you might have a friend who keeps getting back with their ex because they're like, I just need to see it through the end. Like, who they were 2 years ago is not who they are now, that kind of thing. So just because we're talking about one thing, like I've said, a lot of these things overlap and could be applicable to many different situations. So you might just be like, why don't they cut them off? Like, they're terrible, this person's giving them high blood pressure. They don't need them in their life anymore. Most people would rather distance themselves from a person than completely dissolve the friendship. They could physically distance themselves, like I mentioned before, or emotionally distance themselves. So you're not texting or calling someone as much. You're not sharing details about your life anymore. You're not telling them, oh, I got a promotion and I'm planning this vacation. It's just, life is good. Yeah, same old, same old. You just keep it very surface level. Or you just completely don't hang out with that person as much as you used to. So if you went from seeing them 3 times a week, you're cutting it down to 1 time a week. Or if you hung out with them every single day, you're like, actually, I need some space today. Certain things like that. You may move to a different city. If you have a toxic relationship with, your parent and you're like, we just work better in different households. You're probably going to college out of state and you're getting out of the house as much as you can. So those kinds of things are distancing yourselves rather than dissolving the friendship or the relationship. Even with distance, the research shows that leaving a friendship is ultimately up to the internal decisions that a person makes. So if you have an internal conflict about leaving a friend or dissolving a friendship, ultimately research shows that if someone is going to leave a friendship, it doesn't matter how much distance they put between that person, they still have to solve the internal conflict that they have about it. So they have to decide that they actually want to, and like have to decide that they're willing to let go of all the positive aspects. They have to decide that they're, willing to like just let the memories be to actually move forward, because even though you create distance, that toxic friend still might come back, or you still might lean into the relationship just because you haven't fully dissolved the friendship. And ultimately, distancing or dissolving yourself from an ambivalent friendship is really hard because of the mixed feelings. If a friendship was completely negative, of course you're not going to be friends with that person for as long as you are with someone that you actually are having really positive experiences with. So because, these ambivalent friendships are both highly positive and highly negative, so it is difficult to decipher if the pros are outweighing the cons when it comes to ambivalent friendships. But that's ultimately up for you to decide. No one can make that decision for you. But I would suggest making a pros and cons list. And as simple as that sounds, visually seeing the pros of being in a friendship with someone versus the cons of being in a friendship with someone actually helps me. As well, talking it out with someone that you trust. So someone that knows you both, or at least knows you really well, and you've maybe confided in them before about a difficult time that you've had with this friend. They're able to give you a third person perspective and insight, because you might have tunnel vision just because, that's your friend. You're not able to step outside of the relationship and actually see from a fresh set of eyes. When you're able to step back and get perspective, you're actually able to see that if you were giving your friend advice about this same situation, you'd probably tell them, leave that friend, they're not treating you right. But when it comes to you and your friendship, you're like, oh, no. And you're very quick to justify and make excuses and lean into the relationship more. It's harder to make those decisions for yourself, and it's harder to actually have perspective. So I'd say confide in someone that you trust as well to help get some clarity. And my last tip for dealing with ambivalent friendships is to know your worth. Just know that you deserve so much more than the bare minimum. You deserve to get as much out of a friendship as you're putting into it, and know that they're not the only person in the world who's going to be able to understand you or have as much fun with you and make memories with. There's so many other people in the world who you'll meet and who'll be able to provide the friendship that you're looking for, the friendship that you give to others. So don't accept the bare minimum. Please know your worth, and And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope you learned a little bit more about ambivalent or toxic friendships and make some decisions about who to keep in your life and who to let go of. See you guys in the next video. Bye.